Hello, everyone. I'm Claude of Beyond Mystic, and welcome to this very special episode of the Deep Woo Woo. Today's title, of course, is The Cold Hard Truths with my friend Jay Weidner. You can find his work at Reality Check here on YouTube. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to his videos, as well as here on the web at jayweidner.com. Mr. Weidner, Jay, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's great to be back. Good to see you.
How's it going?
Good. Things are good. It's springtime, so I'm really busy. So, because I have a 13-acre ranch I have to run. So springtime is usually the toughest time of the year for me.
Right. I'm just starting also with the greenhouse. And I kind of delayed getting everything cleaned up in the fall last year because I was so busy. So I first have to clean up and then start my planting. So yeah. I'm a little bit behind the gun as well. So, hey, thank you so much, Jay, for being on. I love these conversations. I want to start with this. You and I did this show a couple of months ago. I believe it was called the Dystopian Timeline. And we ate a little bit of shit for seeing and talking about the things that we thought could be on our timeline here. And as things are progressing and we're seeing the water on the bridge, we're all realizing, us inclusive, you and I, Jay, that perhaps there's more unintended consequences to everything that's happening around the world now. And this is the impetus for this show today. We wanted to kind of do a reality check here and maybe help the audience members navigate what's coming. Before I do that, we had the loss of a mutual friend here just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Jordan Maxwell. I know that you and I had done a video about this on the day of his passing or the day after. And for me, I have to say, Jordan was a big part of my awakening process. So to see him go was very difficult. But I thought we'd take this time because you had way more interactions with him as one of your personal friends. And I thought if you feel like it, if you can share some of your memories with Jordan and how he also changed your trajectory on this red pill path that we're all collectively traveling together. Jay?
I didn't, Jordan didn't have the effect on me that he had on everybody else, because by the time I met Jordan in 94, I was pretty much up to speed. What happened with me and Jordan when we met wasn't him helping me or me helping him. It was like, whoa, I found somebody that I can talk to, and then he felt the same way. So it's just like almost brothers, almost, yeah. Right? Finishing each other's sentences and being really into the same kinds of history and where things come from. The one thing that I will give him credit for me was he pounded the Jesuit thing into me. I resisted for about 5 years. That because I just didn't see the C church as having that much power. Mm-hmm. But now I realize, of course, it did have that much power back then. Today it doesn't, but still highly influential. And now we have our first Jesuit Pope, and
Yep.
So Jordan, I salute you. But Jordan was just a really sweet guy and very gentle, and really had a hilarious sense of humor. And I mean, really funny, but outrageous in a way that I can't even tell any of his jokes. I'd be thrown off the air. But, I mean, he would say stuff in public that was so outrageous, so politically incorrect. And then he knew that because he was an old fart, that nobody could do anything to him. And he always had that, I'm trying to remember the guy, Henny Youngman. He always thought he was like Henny Youngman. And so he kind of always did the Henny Youngman kind of humor, Doc, I want to get a second opinion. Okay, you're ugly too, that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, and it was funny. I mean, because coming from this old guy, and so one time we were at dinner and he'd had too much to drink and he went into his whole Rodney Dangerfield, and he had 20 people at this big, huge table, absolutely in tears, laughing, and he was doing perfect Rodney Dangerfield.
I can get no respect.
Neighbor said, your wife makes too much noise when she's having sex. And I said, hey, don't invite her over anymore. That kind of stuff. he had them all down, and
Wow.
that's what I really remember about him was his vast knowledge and his sense of humor, and he had a cynical side which could get you down after a while because hopefully he's now on the other side and he's realizing that it's not quite as dark as he
Right.
thought it was.
Right.
So we'll see.
Right.
I personally don't believe that the world is as dark as Jordan did. That's
Right.
one of our things where we disagree.
Well, I'd like to talk about that today too, because we're all trying to glean um, maybe remote information and trying to understand and map out where humanity is going. And we're all pulling from different sources. You get the Cliff Highs of the world with the webbot data, which tends to be more on the negative side. We have other psychics, tarot readers, and all that. And we're trying to pull all of that in to better understand, I guess, the transitory nature of our reality. But one thing you just mentioned about Jay that was interesting, about Jordan that was interesting, was that you felt, finally, I could talk to somebody. And for a lot of people, Jay, and I do get this a lot, when you're on the show, they feel the same way about you. They love watching your show. They love reading your books. And they're also kind of in that relationship with you where they're like, finally, there's another guy out there speaking kind of like us and who makes sense and who sees things and perhaps alleviates that feeling of separateness or loneliness that a lot of us in this community have felt, specifically over the last 2 years. So a big thank you to you, Jay, for all of your work. And a big thank you to all of you watching live here today. Really appreciate you guys being here and having this conversation with Jay and myself. But Jay, what you were just talking about now, maybe not seeing as dark as maybe Jordan did, can you highlight maybe 2 or 3 things where you really disagree with him? One, what is the darkness that he saw? And two, why you disagree and what you would replace that vision with now as we stand today on April 21st, understanding that we are all evolving every day and we're gathering more information and we're changing our points of views as we go. But can you maybe perhaps mention 2 or 3 here?
Well, I mean, I'm not as old as Jordan, so maybe I'll get really cynical as I get older. But I actually believe that there's this is one of our disagreement points. I believe there's a cadre of people that are in a secret society that are actually working for us, and they do it and they don't do it up front. They do it in psychic ways, and they move stuff around, and they give you ideas, and they help you, and they stop bad things from happening to the people that they've recruited. And I believe that this group is far more powerful than anyone believes or knows, except for possibly the illumined ones who know this group exists and are irritated constantly by it. Okay, and I believe that Fulcanelli was one of these member of this group. And so I believe that we can't predict the future. That's the thing with Jordan. He thought he had a firm grip on where everything was going. And I don't think we can predict the future. I think that we're in a war. I've said this on your show before. We're in the war of the ages. We're in the war of the fading Piscean age and the rise of the age of Aquarius. And right now they're like this. And the Piscean age is the age of centralization. It's the age of religions, giant religions, and all of that. And the Aquarian age is like, we're decentralizing. We're taking all of our toys and we're moving out into the country, and we're going to have small communities, and that's how we'll get solve our problems and keep the human spirit alive. So and I think if Jordan had maybe moved out into the country when he was in his 40s or something, he may have a different view, because it does change your view. I mean, I'm sorry. When you're living in the urban environment, you get a very dark view of the world. And he spent most of his time in an urban environment. So I think that like the fall of Netflix, I think this is like huge, like a glorious, wonderful light from the sky coming down and shining into the filthy woke mess that Netflix has become, until it's almost a joke. We turn it on, we're like, okay, when's the first politically correct person going to come in? When's and everything's just this, everything is, there's no stories, everything's just this kind of propaganda flying at us, I stopped watching a long time ago. So I think that the people waking up through shows like yours is really increasing. I was just at a hot springs the other day. I just met some woman, started talking to her, and she was completely, wide awake. And I only spent like 10 minutes with her, and I was like, wow, that was kind of amazing. So I think what we really have going on here is they went too far with the last 2 years. They went too far with it. And because everybody was sitting at home and looking for answers, they eventually they got zeroed in on shows like yours and mine, and now all of a sudden there were answers, and so that became this welling point, which is why now they're coming after everybody and going to try to put the hammer down. But I see a lot of things going on that are countering this thing, countering the age of Piscean guys who are the World Economic Forum and all those guys. They're very controlling and believe in deep centralization, and where they're going to control your temperature in your house and how fast your car goes. And this is their dream, is this vast intrinsic invasion of our privacy and our life. And the Aquarians aren't going to do it. And so this is going to become a war. The World Economic Forum said came out like a couple of weeks ago and said, well, our real liability, the people that are really going to be trouble for us are the people who live out in the country. They pretty much said it. And so, we have no intention of joining them. And so I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be pretty hard to get any of their high technology out here to where I am. So they're not going to be able to monitor me, and I won't let it happen anyway. So, I'm prepared to go whatever lengths I have to go to stop the transhumanists from invading me and my family and my community's life. That I am prepared to say. And that's what we all have to say and do. We have to say, no, there's a line in the sand. If you guys want to hook up to the internet and all that and get chipped and all that, fine. We're tolerant people, and we'll let you do it. We don't, not going to judge you, but don't ask us to do it, because we're not going to do it. We love your toys. We want to have them all, but we just we want to control the toys. We don't want the toys to control us.
Exactly. That's a big distinction right there, perhaps worth a whole show. You mentioned quite a few things that are of interest to me too, because I just one of my co-hosts, Julie, on the show, she's an astrologer. She just kind of explained what you just explained there in an interview yesterday with Janine. And she said when she was born and raised in Montreal, one of our big cities here in Canada. It was only in the last 2-3 years before this big narrative started, she started feeling, for lack of better words, this negative energy growing in the city. And so she decided to extricate herself from the big city, go into the country, and then really realize how big of a difference it was, energetically speaking, to be living outside of these cities. You just mentioned the WEF. They have these terms here in Canada. I think they do the same thing in the States, but they want to create these smart cities. And of course, this is where all of this technology is coming in, and they want to force people away from the country back into these small little boxes. At any rate, her story of leaving the matrix and self-empowering herself, not just on the city versus the countryside, but also really thinking about how individually we could contribute to this transition that we're in. You just mentioned this war that we're in now, and I think this is where more people have to have this cognitive understanding that we are in fact in this war, and we are battling between these two ages. And what we're seeing now is the old world fighting tooth and nail, and for them it's their death if they don't win. So this is why they're doing all of the crazy things we're doing, and we're watching these politicians, Jay, do things that 10-20 years ago they wouldn't do, because it would be political suicide. And we're asking ourselves, why the hell are they acting that way? Well, the answer is it's because for them it's do or die. If they don't protect this old system of the old Aquarian age, they're done for it. Can you share your understanding of that, and how critical and how that translates to our day-to-day lives here when we transact with all of these people who are working really hard to keep the old matrix alive?
Yeah, that is one of the big problems is that um, I think it just until recently, the Aquarians didn't know they were in a war. The Aquarians were like, oh, I guess sort of like the flower children in the hippie days, like, oh, why do you hate me? And we were kind of baffled by why we were hated, and we were bubbling forth with all these ideas and having all summarily rejected by the Pisceans in charge. So then we would go off and we did our own thing because it's like, screw it. I'm not going to do what they want me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's how the Aquarian age is. The Aquarian age is both highly individuated, but also much more smaller community oriented. So, in the Aquarian age, it's, you protect yourself first, then you protect your family second, then your community third. And because you can't protect anybody until you protect yourself. So we're going to have to move back into a place where we're going to have alternative medicine. It's just going to be a normal thing because you're not going to be able to drive to the hospital. I mean, I don't know where gas is going. It looks like they're intending on getting it up to $10-12 here in the States a gallon. So, pretty soon we're not gonna be able to travel very much unless you have an electric car. But even then, there's not enough electricity to power electric vehicles. This is another thing they're telling us. So everything they're doing is to centralize power, and we have not taken this serious. We thought we were just going to be loved for our new ideas and our new ways of thinking, and we're not. We're hated for that. Yeah. And so we have to realize that we're in a war. And the Aquarians don't want to have top-down leadership. Aquarians don't like hierarchies very much. Aquarians don't like, big armies or big religions or any of that. They like everything small. So we have to defeat the enemy at that level. And that level would be to get out to the country, grow your own food, have good water, take care of your family, and by example, start inviting your friends who are not Aquarians up to visit you. I do that all the time. Yeah. I invite people that I know are, really not. They live in the city and everything. I have them come out to where I live. Within a week, they're ready to, boogie out of their house in the city and come out and live in the country because they realize how incredibly different it is. And here's the thing: energetically, when you're in it, you have what we call a plasma body or a light body, and it's all around. It's in the shape of a torus. Comes down through the top of your head and out the bottom of your spine. And when you're in the city, you consciously shrink that light body down to almost your skin level. And the reason you're doing that is because you don't want to intermix your light body with other people that you don't know's light body. So, it's okay at a party where all your friends are there and everybody can let loose and we don't really care. But, when you're in the city, when you're in an elevator or whatever, you tend to constrict it down. And then you get used to having it constricted down in the city. And then when you're in the country, you can open it all the way back up. And I think that's the thing that is the real difference is the ability to be in touch with your higher self is easier when you don't have as many things that cause you to constrict your chi body, your prana body, whatever you want to call it. Right. And so I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed is when I go to the city, I can feel myself consciously shrinking up as I get into a crowded situation.
Right. So right now we're living in this world of two tribes, I think, as Cliff had called it, and he had seen this coming up in his Webbot data a couple of years ago. We now are in two tribes of people who were willing to take the product versus the people who are not willing to take the product. And we have this division now, even though in some jurisdictions we have these mandates that are being lifted and the narrative is crumbling. We still have these two tribes. So I can understand that some of us would shrink our fields right now to not interact with that other tribe, consciously or not. But there's also the big technology. So without getting into the keywords here, but there's towers with certain equipment on in the cities that you don't find out in the country. And for example, when I went to haven't done so in the last 2 years, but Joe, Dave, and I were doing treasure hunting in New Mexico, and every time we were there for 2-3 months at a time, we realized how expansive, as you were saying,
Yeah.
our energy bodies were, and how connected we all were to everything else. Because one, there's nobody there who of the wrong tribe, and two, there's no technology there also. So these places are magical, and I thought that when they started all of these lockdowns, there was the issue of the narrative, there was the issue of control, but I also thought they were trying to prevent us from going to these places, because these places are also moving into the age of Aquarius and expanding their energy bases, these ley lines on the planets, the sacred sites. I don't think they wanted us to visit them because something was happening there in exchange with humans as well. Can you speak to that about these sacred sites, and perhaps this idea that this narrative of lockdowns was also trying to trigger us not going to these specific sites? What do you think about that, Jay?
Oh, I think it's absolutely got a lot of weight to it. What happened with us was we had we got the lockdowns in March, started in March 2020, and we were my wife and I were locked down for maybe until late April, and then we're like, you know what, screw this, right? And so we just jumped in our car and we went to Grand Canyon, Sedona. We went to, and we were getting I got a place on the beach in San Diego for $120 a night, right on the beach, in a high rise, which would normally cost like 400. I got it for like 120. I got a thing on the Grand Canyon, which normally would cost $500. We got it for like 120 because there was nobody. We were like in the parks and there was nobody. It was the most weird sensation and fun. Actually, I want to tell you, it was absolutely a blast. And we got to have the whole park, all the parks to ourselves. And everybody was gone. It was spooky. But I do believe that they were cutting us off from that. They wanted, who in their right mind would tell someone that is possibly going to catch a disease, a respiratory disease, to stay inside? I mean, that's just.
But it's the science, Jay. It's the science. Don't question the science.
The worst air in the world is inside. You want to go outside. You want to get the windows open. You want to have as much fresh air as you can get. You want sunshine. All the things that they tell us, by the way, it's just wrong. They tell you not to go out in the sun. It's like that. What? And as if we didn't really, evolve here, and to be able to go outside, right? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what they're saying. So we're really facing this war, and the war is going to go on, and even the war that's going across the pond, even right now, is part of this war. And I'm not going to say any more than that because you can just derive from that what you want, except that I'll say that the president of Ukraine represents the Piscean age. That's all I'm going to say. He's a perfect representation of the Piscean age and the way that they try to control us through manipulation and media and all that. That's not going to work anymore because we're media literate now. We can see right through their crap.
Right. And we can see it just by looking at the stats of CNN and their viewership in the last couple of months, too. It's been absolutely abysmal.
More good news.
It's been the last 2 years, but specifically here again in the last couple of months. You just mentioned some of these sites. I wanted to maybe track back on an episode we did maybe last year. We talked about Le Mystère des Cathedrals, Fulcanelli's book, and that tied into your book, The Great Cross of Henday. And I was wondering if right now, is it possible, and I'm bringing this up because you've touched on this subject here. So guys, if you haven't seen this last A Monument to the End of Time, The Alchemy and Fulcanelli, please do go and check this last video here from Jay a couple of days ago, 7 days ago. I wanted to ask you, Jay, is it possible that the powers that be, the people, as you mentioned here, who are supporting the old Matrix and the Piscean Age, is it possible that they have a scorched earth button or lever also, and that they can still access it? Because we've seen these cataclysmic events through time, and we're wondering if it's cyclical by nature or by design of the energy, or if it's cyclical in the sense that humanity, as we grow, we get to a point where we want our freedom, and it's like a natural inbuilt thing in our DNA that there's only so many times, so many ages they can keep us in a prison, and that when we get to that point where we start rebelling, the people would, flip that switch and create these disasters.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's
Not
okay.
gonna get it.
Do you understand where I'm going with this? Do you
Yeah.
see a link to that? What can you say to the audience?
Well, I mean, it's kind of an ongoing debate between me and Randall Carlson. He did a series of fascinating shows recently on his show Cosmographica about the fires of between 1820 and 1920 in the United States and Canada, and how incredibly wild and weird, and how they looked and appeared to be more like plasma storms than some kind of fire, and how Lake Michigan had, I think, 5 different fires break out all across it on the same day, including the Chicago fire. Yeah. And then we can look at the American Southwest, and we can see that it looks like it got scorched by some kind of plasma series of plasma strikes. And Native Americans have the on the walls of the caves, they have plasma images, and so I'll say it's one of 2 things. One, it's some kind of cyclic thing that happens. A plasma storm, maybe a planet comes nearby or something and causes it to happen, or it comes from the sun, which is what the Cross of Henday is saying. Or it could be, I know this is a really wild one, but and I think about this a lot. It could be that there's an unknown country on this planet, and that some very advanced people who survived the catastrophe live in this unknown country, and they use us as kind of like their genetic farm and their regular farm. In other words, we grow their food for them, and they control our religions and everything. And periodically they use weapons on us of some kind. I don't know what else to say. Or they're aliens. Maybe they're space aliens. I don't know. But somehow here's the thing. If the Native Americans are doing pictograms showing lightning strikes and showing the plasma, what plasma would look like in the sky above them, and they're getting it down and they're getting it right, the question then becomes, how long are those pictograms, and how long will they last? Because if a pictogram can only there they are. If a pictogram can only last, say, 500 years, that means that plasma storm hitting the Southwest happened 500 years or ago or so. Right. So what I'm reaching a conclusion here, and I still got a long way to go, but there's something wrong with our timelines, and something wrong with our history. We're missing years, or something is not right, because things seem to be happening faster than we're being told they're happening. And it's looking to me like somebody wanted to burn up America and Canada from 1820 to 1920 because the amount of fires. And remember, these are stone buildings for the most part. I mean, the fire of Boston, those were all stone buildings. Same thing with San Francisco. Those are all stone. Those weren't like shoddy wooden structures. These are built out of brick, and brick just doesn't burn that well. And so same thing with Chicago. So you have to understand that there's something else going on, and they're hiding it. And Randall Carlson's accounts, and he goes into the books that were written by the survivors. His accounts are so hair-raising, how almost sentient the fires were, the way that they drove from one village to another without, taking a curved line. It was a straight line, and as if they knew what they were doing, and the fierceness of them and the quickness that they burned is just absolutely jaw-dropping. I mean,
and it was also surgically precise in the way that it seemed to be targeting buildings and infrastructure that could betray the technology of the time. We're looking back now and seeing, whoa, maybe there was free energy in those times. There's a lot of discussion about Antiquitech and some of these Tartarian buildings across the world. So that's very interesting. You also mentioned the timelines. I was speaking about this on my show a month ago. This is the work of Anatoly Flamenco, which describes a little bit what you're talking about here. We don't appear to be in the same time that we think we are. And of course, it makes sense if you go back to our friend Jordan Maxwell. Everything we know is pretty much wrong here. But before we go to the timeline, I wanted to ask you, going back to the idea that perhaps either ETs or another civilization is occupying another continent. You said country, another continent on this planet. Now, there's a whole debate of the flat earthers and all that. I don't want to get into that. But when you look at some of the no-fly zones around the planet and how air traffic is controlled, it appears that there is something that they're trying to hide somewhere. And if you look at the old world maps, we do see this four-continent grouping at the North Pole, where and in very big detail, names on rivers, cities, and towns, and all that. Whereas today, this is just a blank spot on Google Maps. If you were to take an educated guess, Jay, where's this continent or this country that perhaps is living outside, technologically speaking, from the rest of us on this planet? Where would you locate them?
Well, I mean, I would put it like in the South Pacific. There's no shipping lanes, no flying lanes. If you get a thing of shipping traffic and a map of flying traffic, that there's just literally thousands of square miles of empty space where anything could be. And, you know, so you have to ask yourself, okay, who would be who would these people be? And they would be the people who were the first people to discover how to travel with ships.
Right.
So whatever humans discovered how to use ship technology will be the first humans to get to visit other places, learn other languages, see where the copper is, see where the gold is, see where the nice places to grow food are, where the sunny Mediterranean beaches are, right? You would know everything, and everybody back home would just be a bunch of hicks. Well, you would know everything. You'd have all the maps, and there were people then. They were called the Phoenicians, and they were incredibly secret people. They would not tell anybody what they would do. They wouldn't even let you, any foreigner could not even come in to a Phoenician household. If you met a foreigner, you had to do it at the coffee shop or whatever. And I believe that they found some kind of Mediterranean place and realized that nobody will ever discover this, and if they do, we'll kill them. And I believe they settled into this place. And they're the people that Graham Hancock writes about in Fingerprints of the Gods. They came from place to place with their boats and taught farming and metallurgy and probably alchemy and other things to the people. And I believe that they're the ones that are kind of running the world. I believe the phoenix is the Phoenician sign. I believe that they're the ones who conquered Rome. Rome did not have a navy, and they were losing every war and every battle. And all of a sudden, one day, they had this incredible 1,000-ship navy out of the blue, right? Who could teach the Romans how to build a 1,000-ship navy? Only the Phoenicians could. They're the only ones that had the boats that could go out. They're the ones that mined the copper and on the St. Lawrence Seaway. That was all Phoenician copper, setting their boats there and coming back. They created the Bronze Age. They also created the Iron Age, but they created it in secret in Phoenicia and refused to tell the rest of the world how to smelt iron until finally the secret got out. So the Phoenicians were about 500 years ahead of everybody else, even on iron. So the Phoenician, and here's the thing, that when we get back to this timeline thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. The Phoenicians are your premier boat builders. There's no doubt about it. Okay. They built the best boats, and the Vikings were probably Phoenicians, and the Venetians were probably Phoenicians, and the whole Portuguese, Spanish Empire was probably Phoenician. And is that there's no advancement in boat technology or design from the year 400 to the year 1400. Mm-hmm. There's no evolution. There's no advance. The same exact technology and everything that they had in 1400 is the same exact what they had in 400. So it's like 1,000 years go by and there's no advancements at all. Okay, same thing with war. Same thing with construction tools. The same thing with everything. It's like everything just stopped in the year 400, and then it kick-started again in 1400 with the same exact stuff, the same exact ways that you have to build things, or rope and pulleys and that kind of thing. It's still the same way. And you got to wonder now. The cathedral building supposedly started around 1100 with the Templars coming back from Jerusalem and starting to build these cathedrals, but they were still using building technology that was still what they used in Rome in 400. So I don't know. Fulcanelli tells us that for sure that the Dark Ages, which is what we're talking about here, 400 to 1400 is considered to be more or less the Dark Ages. He says that the Dark Ages are not what you think they are. He's very strange of what he says about it. He says you go look at paintings or sketches from people in the Dark Ages, and you'll notice that they're plump, happy. You have this image that everybody's starving to death and it's this horrible time. And Fulcanelli assures us that that is not true, but it's a strange thing for him to bring up. And it's almost like he's trying to hint that, maybe there were no Dark Ages. And I don't know. I'm trying to find that ultimate meter that will let me know. I'm trying to find that one thing. I've gone to graveyards all over Europe, and I can't find any graves older than 1500. I don't think I've ever found a grave older than 1500, and which I find strange. But they'll tell you that the erosion, eroded the gravestone, so you can't see the thing anymore. Maybe that's true, but it's just strange. It's something I'm completely fascinated by because I cannot penetrate it. I can't, no matter how much I drill down, I cannot, figure it out. And we know Flamenco, what he did was he took, those programs that allow you to look at stars and, backwards and forwards. And so he knew that from the Peloponnesian War that there were, I think, 2 separate total eclipses as reported by the historians. So he said, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to find those 2 eclipses, right? And he couldn't find them, not in the time period that the Peloponnesian War was supposedly happening. So he got really perplexed and he began looking for that same time period where there was 80 days between the 2 or something, right? And so he searched and searched and searched, and it was like 1,000 years later than the Peloponnesian War was. We would see 2 total eclipses from Greece at that time, right? And that's when that blew his brains out because he didn't know what to do at that point. And that's when he began his drill down. And all he really did, because he didn't really solve any problems, he just created so many questions that we cannot even answer. I mean, it's so it's not what we think that it is. And things may be more compressed than we think they are, and and then there's the other questions, the little tiny things that bug me. Like there's a building in a town I grew up in, Omaha, Nebraska, and when I grew up, there was all these incredibly ornate, amazing buildings in downtown Omaha. I mean, with 14-foot doors and giant ceilings in the rooms, and just really ornate. And they tore them all down. Okay. Right. And so, and I remember I was a little kid asking my dad, why are you tearing down these buildings? And he's like, oh, we don't want them anymore. And he couldn't really come up with any reason why they were tearing them down. And they were beautiful. I mean, stunning Greek colonnades and, really unusual designs. And so then a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to pick one of those buildings, the one I remember the most beautiful, and I'm going to go and I'm going to search for its history. I'm going to find pictures of it being constructed, or drawings at least. I'm going to find, the plans, the architectural plans for it. I'm going to go into the archives. I'll just pick one. I'm just going to pick one building, and I'm going to dig in as far as I can and find out the history of this building. And you know what? I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find a drawing. I couldn't find anything in the newspapers about it being built. Nothing about it being built until one day it's just there. Like somebody just took it over and it was there. And then 40 years later, they tore it down, you know? And so I think the same thing. I think if you guys have older buildings in your urban areas, do that. Go into the archives of your city's archives and try to find, if you can know the history of it. I'm going to bet dime to donuts you're going to have a lot of trouble finding these histories. You know, like that during the trucker thing. I'd never really seen the Capitol building in Quebec. Wow, what an astounding building that is. You know, and I'd really like to look into the history of that building. I'd like to, you know, are there pictures of those guys constructing it? And it's just one of those buildings.
Just like some other buildings you were talking about, Allison is saying on the screen here, yeah, she likes the work of John Levy, of course, who's doing a lot of amazing work looking at all of this history. And here in Canada, too, we have these buildings where if you look at the mainstream narrative, they'll point you to Wikipedia page, and there they have a good example and a few pictures of supposedly the construction, but it always appears to be the re-roofing part. It's never the actual cornerstone building start of the building. So yes, it is a mystery that is hard to penetrate. Now, as you were talking about, that's something that cued into my mind. We're 41 minutes in, Jay. You're looking into this and you're fascinated by this, and more I think people are waking up to. We want to understand where we come from, where we're going, what really is going on here, what time are we in, where are we located. But one of the big mysteries that's also been fascinating to you, on top of the moon and Mars, you and I have done shows on this, is Antarctica. I wanted to ask you also if you're hearing any rumblings now, because in some of the Web Data Project, it's looking like we might see a resurgence of information here very shortly, perhaps this year in 2022, that would bring some of these old civilizations, technologies that are still hidden from us in Antarctica, and how that could change our understanding of who we are. What are you hearing on that, and what can you share with the audience, Jay?
Well, I mean, I'm hearing that they've found a lot of stuff, and they're doing a lot of under the ice examinations and finding a lot of things. But the big problem there is that they've got. I'm pretty sure that they've got a secret space program base there, because the way they can avoid the Van Allen belts by taking off from Antarctica, it would be underground, so you wouldn't see it. Just only thing would probably be wherever the escape mount is for them to get out. They're probably using flying saucer technology, not rockets. But so you wouldn't even hear it. There would be no sound. So, you know, it'd be the perfect place. But you can actually fly to Antarctica. You can fly to the South Pole. It's $50,000 from Christchurch, New Zealand. And if anybody wants to fly me there, feel free to buy me a ticket. I'm more than willing to go there and see the ice wall. And
Jay, just so you know, Jay, Cliff High, Joe, my buddy, the Travel Hunters, we're just saying just now, maybe next year we'll mount an expedition and we'll go. So I'll keep your name on the list if you want to join.
Yeah, I want to go. Well, I always wanted to go, actually. But you can take a flight to the South Pole. I had a guest on my show, Eric Hecker, and he lived at the South Pole for a whole year, which is an amazing story. He had to eat 20,000 calories a day just to stay even. And you know, he says there's definitely a bunch of really secret stuff going on, including using the ionosphere to do radio waves to mind control people and things like that. And so there's a lot of installations down there that are using the location for various reasons, and so that could be problematic. But I think that the people that are in charge, the Pisceans, are so worried about their future right now that they're going to start releasing stuff to try to waylay us from fine. Here's what they do. Yeah. As soon as a people begin figuring out that they're controlled by an evil mafia, then the evil mafia kills everybody. I mean, that's what they do. And we're at that point right now where the evil mafia has to figure out what they're going to do. And this time we're way ahead of them. And we have found different ways to communicate to get around what they're doing. And a lot of that has to do, by the way, with that group of people I mentioned at the beginning that are actually on our side. They're the ones that are letting a lot of things slide, like the internet, and doing a lot of other things to cause to smoke them out is actually what they're doing. They're smoking them out, and that's what's happening every day. The bad guys are more and more obvious, or more and more smoked out, and things just aren't going the way that they want, and they can't figure it out. And I see a lot of victories, to be honest with you. And I think we're actually going to we just have to get through this war. And once we're done with the war, and the war is not going to be short, it's a long war. It's going to take years to fight it. And
well, let's talk about that in the couple of maybe 10 minutes remaining on the show, Jay. I wanted to focus on this with you because, like you, I'm cautiously optimistic. I see some of the negative viewers out there, but I also see that there are energies propelling us that is behind us here in the Aquarian age. And I think that, like you, I see little things, even though it's not written in black and white on CNN yet. I see a lot of those victories time and time again. And I think one of the changing factors, maybe right now in this particular era, is that enough of us are awake right now, and we have a copy of their playbook. We know what they're doing. We see the false flags when they happen, before they happen, type of thing. So we're on this course now. If you were to share with the audience maybe a handful of things that are giving you optimism now of where this war is going and where humanity is going to come out maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, what would those be? Because for a lot of people, they need to hear this right now. They're being bombarded and being distracted with all of these crazy theories and snake oil things. And we don't need to get into that, but there's a lot of propaganda right now just to distract us from the finish line. So what do you see that encourage people here on how to navigate what's to come?
Well, I think I think we've come to realize as a group that there's a cult, and this cult, their religion is the woke religion, and climate change, and this cult had everybody wanted to be in the cult for a long time. And now the Aquarians don't really want to be in the cult at all. In fact, they want nothing to do with the cult. So the cult is losing its power, both in influence and in every way, power. And this cult stepped over the line when they weaponized the financial system, both against the truckers in Canada and against the you-know-who over there in Eastern Europe. And when they did that, everybody went, wait a minute here. You can do that to me too, right? So India all of a sudden went, whoa, and everybody, even the people, me, you, we all realized that we could have our bank accounts, everything frozen just for saying the wrong thing accidentally. And then that became like, holy smokes. Right. So, immediately, I bought like 3 more Bitcoins, and, I went into a full scale panic and started drawing everything out of my bank account with what little I have left, so that, they couldn't control me anymore. And I'm not alone. Everybody's going into a panic over that. And they overstepped their bounds. That was a huge mistake. And I said it the second it happened. This is the worst mistake that they could ever make. But that's proof that the financial mafia is in a corner and they can't get out. And now they've set into motion all of their downfall. So, the dollar will not reign supreme, and Americans have no idea what that actually means for them. But that's the way it's going to happen. And so, and Netflix crashing, CNN crashing, the entire woke system is crashing. Everybody that used to be against it, or used to be for it, or not everybody, but a lot of the heavy influencers are now moving away, like Bill Maher, and we're getting we're not left or right. We're common sense. Aquarians don't do left and right. That's
Right.
Piscean. We do right and wrong, but we also do. We're easy. We're just, we're not. That's our problem. We're not interested in fighting, and so and Disney's crashing. Thank you,
Yes.
and that's really wonderful. By the way,
Yes.
savoring that like some really good food.
Oh,
You
yes.
know, I don't want to swallow it. It's like, yeah. I mean, they're the
Oh,
woke, so the woke.
I've been waiting to do a special decode on Disney for a while, and we were guided to maybe not come out until more of the information. And now enough of it is coming out that I think we could probably squeeze a show out. But you mentioned something, so folks, stay tuned for that. And Janine and I will be on that show here very shortly, maybe even possibly this weekend. But what Jay was just talking about now, it's so critical to understand this awakening process that happened by the bad guys here stepping over the line with the financial system. As soon as they touched into your pocket, for the people who are sleepers out there, that's when they realized, what just happened? And it basically materialized or gave reality to an old webbot product projection that was called Panic to Own. And we were all looking at this and looking at all the data, and we're trying to figure out what initiates this. What's that spark? What's that fire that makes everybody realize, oh my God, my money is not safe, and I'm now panicking to own, whether that's gold, silver, or crypto, as Jay just mentioned. It really started in earnest, to the point where here in Canada, the RCMP quickly backtracked because they were getting so much hate from our banking system, and our banking system had to basically halt withdrawals. We had our Minister of Finance here had to come out to say, not only can we freeze your account, we can freeze your account to prevent a bank run, because one is happening right now. So as they were trying to do damage control, they were doing even more damage to the system and to the remaining confidence people had in that system. This is also, like you were talking about Disney, this is a sweet revenge in a way to see this finally, because there's people like you and I have been talking about this for years, and we were always, you're the tinfoil hatters. The government would never do that to you, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly here they were suffering under that same tyranny that we were warning about so many years ago. So, wow, things are changing, in fact, really, really quick. Jay, in the next couple of minutes here, what's coming up on the reality check here on YouTube? Any new fascinating guests? Any new maybe interviews you want to point the audience to here so they can go check that out?
Well, my last interview that I did on the end of Hollywood is certainly turning out to be prescient with what's happened with Netflix. And I actually mentioned Netflix in that interview this was before the crash,
Right.
saying that they can't hold on. It's impossible. And so that's what the thing about Netflix crash is that they owe tons of money in the future on future productions. That's how big this is. This is going to bring down a lot. I'm also reading from my first book that I did with Vincent Bridges, A Monument to the End of Time, every Wednesday night. I do a chapter a night, so it's only like 15 minutes a show, but it's a very rare book, and I can't get it published anymore. So I'm going to read it and give it out for free. And I'm just doing a lot of exploring the war between the ages is where I'm really looking at, and also my drill down into our very strange history and what in the world is going on.
What the heck is going on? So, folks, if you want more of that, of course, please do go check out Reality Check here on YouTube. And you can find also the reprints of some of his books here at jayweidner.com. Last words to you, Jay. Words of wisdom on how to navigate what's to come. The people who are just maybe waking up, coming to some of this information now. What would you tell them here to empower them today as we leave this conversation?
That that your own intuition is your biggest friend, and when you smell like something's happening, it probably is. And I'm a hunter, and I can tell when I'm in danger before it happens. And we all have to regain. That's what's going to happen in the age of Aquarius. We're going to regain the psychic abilities that have gone dormant through the Piscean age, and we're going to become very aware and hyper aware of everything around us and each other. And we're probably going to be able to start even reading minds and things like that.
Wow.
So I'm very optimistic.
Very optimistic. And so never be fooled. How did they say? Never judge a book by its cover. Of course, in this episode, we were talking about the cold, hard truth, and we had some ugly stuff in the background. But that ugly stuff is actually the stuff we don't need, that is breaking down these old systems that are breaking
Let it
down
go.
for us. Exactly. So let it go. Don't hold on to the past. Be confident of our abilities here moving forward, and be confident that we have these energies and these amazing people like Jay Weidner behind this momentum to usher us into this age of Aquarius. I'm Jean-Claude of Beyond Mystic. This was the Cold Hard Truth. I love you guys. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.